Hi, I'm Stefan Harris. I'm the Public Affairs Specialist for the National Assessment Governing Board, an independent bipartisan board that sets policy for the National Assessment of Educational Progress, or NAEP, otherwise known as the nation's report card. I'm joined today by David Driscoll to discuss the Trial Urban District assessment results for the nation's report card in math and reading, grades 4 and 8 for 2011. Dr. Driscoll is the current chair of the National Assessment Governing Board, former Commissioner of Education for Massachusetts, and a former secondary school mathematics teacher. Today we will hear his reaction to the NAEP report card results, which provide information on achievement and trends in 21 large urban districts throughout the country. Thank you for taking time out to talk with me, Dave.
Thank you, Stefan. Glad to be here.
Great. We now have results for our nation's 4th and 8th graders, how they performed in reading and math for the nation overall for each state and now for the 21 urban districts. And we also have insights to how students perform with different ethnic and economic backgrounds. So there truly is a wealth of information. To begin our discussion, what would you say is your biggest takeaway of these TUDA results?
Well, much like the national results, the TUDA results are similar in that the mathematics was some improvement, and of course looking back to 2003, in some cases significant improvement. In reading, not much change, so that's really the takeaway.
Now, the governing board has defined the proficient achievement level in NAEP as the level where a student has complete mastery of challenging subject matter. Now, is this the bar that we should be aiming for all students to reach? And if so, what do you think the data shows about our progress?
It's pretty clear to me when you look at the number of kids who go on to college and need remediation, and you look at the results of NAEP and some of the better state tests, you see that the percentages line up. That is to say, kids who score proficient, generally speaking, do not need remediation at the college level. So I think clearly proficiency should be our goal.
Well, despite some positive news overall about performance, I know gaps in achievement still persist, and I know they're of great concern to you, Dave. We see several urban districts where the white, black, and white Hispanic gaps, for example, are higher than gaps seen in the nation and even in large cities overall. What do you find the most troubling, and why do you think the nation hasn't made a lot of progress towards closing those gaps?
I think one basic fact we need to look at is, are we providing the kinds of resources, time and money, to these children that are far behind? They don't have the stimulation that suburban kids have in terms of the number of books they're exposed to, libraries, activities, etc. So we see, for example, the summer loss issue where kids gain during the year but then lose over the summer and start up in the next September further behind, etc. So I think this nation, as well as our schools and districts, it's not just about the schools. I think all of society has to pay attention to this and see to it that a focus is put on this problem and that we're providing better opportunities for these young people.
How do you think educators, policymakers, and others really can use the NAEP data at the state and district level to affect improvements in our education system?
I think it would be well for people, particularly in the field of education, to look at the details, if you will. And there we see examples. Certainly Charlotte, Mecklenburg, Austin, Texas have shown some progress. And as you mentioned, Boston, this year, for example, Boston did have a slight closing of the gap between the more affluent students and poor students. So that's a good sign. So I think you see these states and or communities that really pay attention to setting high standards, putting in place structures to get to those standards, and you're starting to see some results. Right?
How is the governing board contributing to efforts in increasing overall achievement in students and trying to narrow those gaps?
We are the nation's report card. We are to say, what does student achievement in America looks like? Beyond that, as you know, as chair, I've challenged the board and others to say, how can we make a difference? It's one thing to put out the results, but what are we going to do about it? And to some extent, we're limited by statute. Congress is clear, and rightfully so, that we ought not to be getting involved in curriculum. We ought not to be getting involved in how teachers teach or anything like that. On the other hand, I do think we can play a role, particularly trying to get people, certain groups and partners to realize how important this issue is.
And lastly, are there any final thoughts that you have as far as the TUDA results that you want to leave with people?
Well, I think the big thing is that people ought to pay attention to these results. As a nation, we better start taking seriously our education results, because if you look across the world, country after country is going by us because of their focus on this very important issue for our future. Young people should have opportunities in this country. That's how this country was built, and it starts with education.
Okay, great. Well, that's all the questions I have. I want to thank you, Chair Driscoll, again for your comments and your insight. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan.